Hi friends, I hope everyone's doing well. This past week, I only had 20 minutes each day to work on this video. I decided to bring out my scrap container and 5-inch square art journal to see what I can create within that time frame. Without further ado, let's get into the collaging section. When I pulled the papers for these collages, I tried not to overthink it. I did try to pull light, mid, and dark value papers, but I wasn't overly concerned about if the colors went together, so to speak. Working with a time constraint helps with trying different color combinations that you wouldn't normally pick. Instead of laboring over the color selection, it's best to spend the limited time creating the actual collage. For most of the collages, I used only a glue stick and scissors. Also, you will notice I sped up and edited out dead air of each collage section, so the video won't be over an hour long. I put aside the stamp scrap of deli paper for now. I want to work on creating a layer of papers to place under it. I find that working with the shape of the scrap helps to design the composition of the collage. The red scrap was long and narrow, so I used it as is. Just cut off a piece so it would fit on the substrate. The blue scrap is rectangle, so I cut a smaller rectangle from it. I tore the edge that laid on top of the red paper for an added detail. I did the same for the white and red scrap of security envelope. At this point, there's light, mid, and dark value papers, so I thought it would be a good time to add the stamped deli paper scrap. I'm continuing to test using a glue stick to adhere transparent papers to a collage. Normally I would use matte medium. I wanted to make sure to cover all 3 of the existing papers underneath it. It gave me an idea of how those papers look under a transparent element. This black scrap is a monoprinted book page. I made more of these papers because I love the look of text underneath black expressive marks. Again, I'm using green and red scraps as is. The green scrap was trimmed to fit into the area. Along with using light, mid, and dark value papers, I like to use various sizes as well. I cut down the security envelope scrap to be an accent element. Instead of marking a cut line with a pencil or a pen, I like folding the paper. It's a quick and easy method to mark the cut line. I thought that using this turquoise scrap would be an unexpected element. Only a section is needed. If I added more, I thought it'd look too busy. Gluing part of it off the substrate adds an interesting detail. Here's the finished collage. The actual time it took to make it was 15 minutes and 21 seconds. I was able to pull papers in all 3 values. Light was the orangey yellow paper, mid was the orange bubble wrap stamp paper, and the green and white striped scrap of security envelope, and dark, the 2 dark blue papers. Because I had a limited amount of papers, I decided to create a collage that had negative space. Also, I'm still having fun creating torn edge paper collage. I thought the torn edges would look good against the negative space. This collage is simple, but I think it turned out successfully. The actual time was 6 minutes and 11 seconds. Another limited color palette and limited amount of papers. This exercise is turning into a good challenge for me. Can I create a successful collage with so many limits? Time, color palette, and amount of paper. It's almost like I'm creating a collage instinctively. I relate it to muscle memory when drawing. I'm letting the papers guide me to the composition. Again, this collage will have some negative space. Since the burgundy, which is the dark value, and the orange, which is mid-tone, are large papers, I'll be using the light value papers, which are the scraps of security envelopes, as accents. The black grid deli paper will take up a large portion of the substrate. I want part of it on the painted papers and part of it on the blank substrate. I think it adds an interesting design detail. Once again, I'm using a glue stick to adhere this transparent paper to the substrate. The actual time it took was 10 minutes and 13 seconds. I decided to pull more papers this time. I did it in a quick manner so I wouldn't overthink it. This collage took the longest for me to create. I was thrown a bit by the color palette. There was contrast between the dark papers and the mostly mid-tone papers. I thought I didn't pull any light value papers until the collage was finished. I took a photo and converted it to black and white so I could see the values clearly. I'll insert that photo at the end of this section so you can compare it to the finished color collage. I'm working around the substrate, placing the papers in a thoughtful way so the collage is balanced. I started with this shiny coral paper, then added 2 darker papers around it. I decided that if I put this blue paper in the lower right area, it would box in the shiny coral paper, meaning I didn't want it to be framed on either side with dark papers. By adding the lime paper, it will break up this area and add balance to the lower half of the collage. Also, gluing the lime and blue papers at a slight angle will add an interesting detail. The 2 papers on the opposite side are glued on top of each other straight across. I did want the right side and the left side to mirror each other. it was time to add the remaining two bright colors. I decided to place them next to each other since the remaining unused paper is a dark green scrap. Again, I didn't want to frame the shiny coral paper with dark papers. I felt it would happen if I put the dark green scrap between the orange and pink papers. I decided to add a small scrap of black monoprinted paper in between the orange and pink papers as an accent. Here's the finished collage. In real time, it took me 17 minutes and 18 seconds to create. I'll insert the black and white version next to it. Do you see the value breakdown as the light papers are the shiny coral, the orange, pink, and lime? The mid-tone is the greenish blue and the blue plaid, and the dark is the black and the dark green. I decided to curate these papers a bit. It's a limited color palette with mostly solid papers. I had an idea of a design in my head that I wanted to try. I started by gluing the papers in blocks of color, being mindful of a balanced composition. The last paper is this monoprinted orange and white paper that I'm gluing in the middle as the focal point. Next, I brought out Blake's matte acrylic paint in black for added detail. I brought out this very old brush to use to dry brush the black paint around the surface. I suggest keeping old, worn-out brushes. You can create interesting textures when using it with paint. This collage took 11 minutes to create. I decided to pull mostly muted color papers for this final collage. I pulled a lot of papers, the same amount as the fourth collage, which was 8 papers. I thought that since the colors are mostly muted, then it'd be easier to create a cohesive collage with all these papers in under 20 minutes. At first, I was planning a horizontal composition, but it started to look boring to me. I decided it'd be more interesting and still cohesive if the top half was a mix of horizontal and vertical composition. I wanted to see how it would look if this small light blue paper with the red detail overlapped on top of the red pattern paper. It looked a bit awkward, so I decided to glue the red paper on top of that section. The right side looked too light with the book page, the gray, and the light blue papers all lined up. By adding a sliver of the dark brown, it broke up that area. I think the collage is more balanced now. This collage took 13 minutes and 37 seconds to create. I want to encourage you to work on your art practice, even if you have less than 20 minutes per day. One collage was created in under 7 minutes. Have some art supplies set aside for this time. You could use limited supplies like a glue stick, scissors, and scrap papers. Challenge yourself to create within these limits. You would be amazed at what you can create. I hope you enjoyed and learned something from this video. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch it. Please let me know if you have any questions. Take care.